This year, as the government seeks to collect more taxes, one of the sectors that will be put under high surveillance is real estate sector. This is because from statistics, it is very clear that real estate sector is one of those sectors that has high level of tax evasion. Now, this is what you need to know as a landlord. First, if you are operating as a sole proprietor, your personal KRA PIN needs to be registered with ETIMS, Electronic Tax Invoicing Management System. This is because every PIN that is used for business purposes needs to be registered for ETIMS. And what are the consequences of you not registering for ETIMS? It is 100,000 for every month that you fail to register for ETIMS when you should be. And this can accumulate to a maximum of 1 million Kenya shillings. When you register for ETIMS, the story does not end there. You are required to issue ETIMS invoices to all your tenants. So if your tenant fails to pay rent to you today and they cite that the reason they have not done that is because you have not issued them with an ETIMS receipt, you would have no powers to push this tenant to pay you unless you first comply. If this tenant goes to rent tribunal, they can stay there forever as long as it is you who is not complying on your side. So landlords, if you are operating as a sole proprietor, your personal PIN should be registered for ETIMS. And of course, it is not any different if you are operating as a company, because that company needs to be registered for ETIMS. Now, you have registered for ETIMS and you have issued ETIMS invoices to your tenant. Now, what you need to do next is to remit housing levy. Housing levy is imposed or taxed at a rate of 1.5% on all the rental income that you receive. So that means if you receive rental income of 100,000 per month, 1,500 shillings you are supposed to remit to KRA as housing levy. For you to be able to file the housing levy, there's something else that you need to do on your personal PIN. You need to add an obligation of pay as you earn. This is because housing levy is payable under the obligation of pay as you earn. And it's not a good thing to do that, but you have no choice as long as you're operating as a sole proprietor. Adding so much obligations on your personal PIN is jeopardizing the chances that you can get a tax compliance certificate every time that you want. Because the more obligations your personal PIN is loaded with, the more the risk. And therefore, it is advisable that you open and register a company so that it can help you to carry out the rental business. Now, once you register your personal PIN for pay as you earn obligation as an employer, then you are supposed to pay 1.5% of the gross rent that you collect to KRA as housing levy by 9th of every month. And now that your personal PIN has been registered for pay as you earn obligation, what that means is that every other time you fail to remit taxes or even to file nil returns, you are subjected to a penalty of 10,000 every month. Remember, you are in business, rental income is also a source of business income. And therefore, pay as you earn, you have to register for it. By 20th of every month, you are required to pay 7.5% of the gross rent that you collect. And this is as a rental income tax. And the word is gross, not net. Once you receive, assuming your rental income is 100,000 per month, you don't deduct the salary that you pay to the caretaker. If you have a loan facility, you don't deduct the interest expense. If you repainted your house, if you did some renovations, as long as you received 100,000 from your tenants, you don't deduct even a single cent. 7.5% of that you pay to KRA as rental income tax. So technically it is 7,500 for every 100,000 shillings goes to KRA as rental income tax. And in form of housing levy, it is 1,500 shillings for every 100,000 shillings that you collect as rent from your tenants. So cumulatively, you are supposed to remit 9,000 per month to KRA as long as your rental income is 100,000. Now, failure to remit rental income tax on a monthly basis by 20th, when you are operating as an individual and a sole proprietor mode of business, you subject yourself to a penalty of 2,000 per month for late payment. And if you are operating as a company, it is higher because the penalty is 20,000 per month. You may think as a landlord that you build your houses with a lot of pain, sweat, blood and tears, and therefore it is your time to relax and enjoy the fruits of your hard labor. Yes, it is true, but the only way and sustainable way for you to do that is to ensure that you register your personal PIN for eTIMS. Failure to do that, you are subjecting yourself to potential penalties of 100,000 per month up to a maximum of 1 million Kenya shillings for failing to register for eTIMS. Number two, once you register for eTIMS, you are required to issue eTIMS invoices to your tenants. So this time you have no choice but to understand accounting and how taxes work, or alternatively, you need to engage a professional tax consultant to guide you through the complex tax system we have here in Kenya. Once you have registered your PIN for eTIMS and you have issued your customers with eTIMS invoices, then you register again your PIN for pay as you earn so that you can be able to pay housing levy. So housing levy plus the rental income tax, which is 7.5%, both of them cumulatively, they add to 9% of the gross rent that you receive from your tenants. And it's a good thing because prior to the introduction of housing levy on rental income, the rental income tax payable was 10%. But after the Affordable Housing Act that came in 2023, the rental income tax reduced from 10% to 7.5%, but at the same time, the housing levy at a rate of 1.5% was introduced. So as we celebrate seeing the government building houses right, left and center, we also need to understand our contribution to that. As far as you as a landlord, you might feel the pain that the government is forcing you to pay for them to build houses, which will eventually come and compete with your business. But nonetheless, when it comes to taxes, those are compulsory mandatory payments that you need to pay. You don't have a choice, or you cannot negotiate how much or when to pay this amount of money. So in short, if you are a landlord, before KRA comes for you, we normally say prevention is better than cure. Engage a professional tax consultant. Let them walk you through the journey that you need to walk so that you comply with KRA. Because if you are ignorant and you choose for KRA to come for you, maybe that time it will be too late, because One of the ways that KRA would come for you, especially if they try to call you, you are not picking calls, they do emails to you, you no longer read your emails, is that they will send an agency notice to your bank. And what that means is that one day you will go to the bank and you want to access rental income that your tenants have paid, but unfortunately you will not be able to access that money. The bank manager will tell you, before we give you any money from your bank account, you need to clear with KRA. And when that happens, of course, you will be required to go to KRA, and KRA will ask you to provide them with bank statements for the last 5 years, and you will have just exposed yourself to something that you could have prevented by starting now. Start today and save yourself from the stress and the pressure that comes when KRA is on your case. When you know better, I expect you to do better.